Hello everyone, it's Brett here, Lionheart84. Welcome to the June, first Sunday in the month, June garden tour. I'm filming this on the Sunday the 2nd of June. And at last, the sun's come out. We've had some very, very cold, wet days with very cold winds in the last, this week, which has not been ideal for several plants. Certainly hasn't encouraged any flowering or fruiting on anything, but nevertheless we're going to do a garden tour, because at least once we get to June things really start to happen. You can at least see what's going on around the gardens. We're going to start on the left hand side as I always do. Have a look at my first potted hardy fruit tree. This is my medlar. Looks to have a really good fruit set this year. I've repotted it to give it plenty of energy. This variety is, I think, called Blaze Patio Medlar, because it's meant to be fairly dwarf, which means I can grow it in a container. But it's had plenty of flowers on it this year, and it looks like a good percentage of fruit set. I wouldn't say every flower set. There's probably one or two here that look as if they're going to drop off. I'm sure that one's, yeah, if I give that a pull, that's come off, that's not set. But on the whole, most of them have set. Moving along, I've got my in-ground kiwi berry. At last, absolutely covered in flowers this year. Once again, none of them are going to set. Although they initially look as if they're going to set, they end up all dropping off because I don't have a male to pollinate them with. I did try to get some pollen from my parents' male plant, but unfortunately it flowered too late when these weren't receptive, so it was too late to pollinate them. So I don't expect any fruits to set unless any of them set parthenocarpically. In ground, in another one in a pot here, I've got a white mulberry. It's covered in lots of small fruits now. I'm hoping they're going to be a little bit bigger this year as they mature, because I repotted it. This one is actually, let me have a look at the variety, let me check the label and see. This one is Carmen. This is a Morris Alba times Rubra cross. Did fruit a lot for me last year, although the fruits are quite small. They are nice and sweet. Tucked away and down on the ground below, behind this, is my in-ground citrus that's putting on loads of growth. Still not sure if it's the rootstock or the actual grafted variety it was meant to be, which is a Myers lemon. It's not easy to tell, but the leaves do have a lemony or citrusy scent to them, so I'm hoping it does turn out to be a Myers lemon, but we will see. Nevertheless, no flowers, but it's put out loads of growth. We'll only really know when it flowers. Tucked away behind that is one of my blueberries. For whatever reason, it's barely had, this particular one, it's only had a handful of fruit on it this year, almost no flowers at all. So I think it might be due for a hard cut back. I think the problem is it's sort of very straggly, and the growth's not really the sort of growth that's putting out fruits. Next to it in ground, I've got the first of my pineapple guavas or feijoas. This one is a mammoth. It's a little bit late to wake up than some of the others. As you can see, a lot of the stems don't have any new growth on them at all yet, but it is starting to flush out a few new shoots, and where it is, there are flower buds. I mean, at the moment, the flower bud production on it looks extremely low, so I hope it's not going to be a barren year where it only gets 2 or 3 fruits on it. But it is early days, and they do flower on obviously the new growth, so I'm hoping if this is just late to wake up, maybe I should possibly have pruned it back a little bit to encourage more new growth lower down, but we'll see what happens. But it has got some flower buds on it, so I'll make sure that I hand pollinate them to get some fruits. Got another mulberry on the another blueberry even. That one's got a few more fruits on that one, but again they're looking a little bit sparse this year. And the one at the front is my most reliable one, and that's loaded in fruits again, but I think they're due for a good cutback next winter. We will see what happens. This is my unnamed seedling pineapple guava. I was going to take it out, just haven't got round to it unfortunately, because the fruits on it are terrible and very small and no good at all. However, it is useful for cross-pollination because it gets a lot of flowers on it. As you can see, it's covered in flower buds, so I can at least use the flowers to pollinate the others. Behind it is my in-ground persimmon, which I'm just about to cut right back to a stem and see if I can graft onto it and top work it. It's got lots of flowers coming out on it, but it seems to be male, although it did produce one fruit last year which was tiny and I didn't even get to taste it. But it's pointless having a giant non-fruiting persimmon tree in my tiny garden, so that's going to be cut back. Next to it I've got my in-ground pomegranate, far and away my most successful plant. Lots of new growth on it, lots of flower buds, although the initial ones are invariably male, but you can see there's plenty of them, and it's got loads more buds developing on shoots all over the plant, so I would think there's a fair chance that it will produce female flowers as well, although we might not see the female flowers until the end of June, beginning of July, which is always the problem here. They tend to be a bit late, which is frustrating. Behind that I've got my Caesalpinia, which is purely for ornamental purposes. Didn't flower at all last year. It was really badly damaged by the cold, but I can see it's got loads of flower buds on it this year. But that really is another one that needs to be cut back very hard, so after it's flowered I think I might cut it back really hard and get light through to everything else. Behind it in ground I've got my very weak spindly little sunflower pawpaw that stays alive but never really seems to do anything else, unfortunately. It's frustrating, but I think it's not in the right location, but moving it's probably going to be a no-no because they hate transplanting. Moving along, we're going to my next pineapple guava. This one is a Triumph, allegedly, because you never know when you buy them if they're labelled correctly. This one seems to have more flower buds on it than the Mammoth. It's putting out lots of new growth because I cut it back last year. We've certainly got flower buds up here, which are in a good position because it means the fruits will get plenty of sun. I'm hoping I'm going to see a lot more flower buds on it develop in the next month or so, because they really flower here from, well, probably the end of June or beginning of July right through to the end of August, although the late August flowers don't set fruits in time to develop to edible sized fruits. You're really relying on the ones that come in July to try and get them pollinated. Along the front of the border I've got plenty of Agropanthus, which should put up a few flowers in the next month or so. Behind that I've got on the wall my purely for ornamental purposes, I've got a Campsis or trumpet vine. Should put on a good flower display probably by early July. My butterfly bush is growing nicely in ground. Buddleia, a bit of a magnet for blackfly, unfortunately, which tends to distort the growth and cut down on the flowers. Now, obviously, in ground here, I've got my seedling pawpaw tree, which does seem to possibly have set a few fruits. You can probably see that little set there. Once they split up and start to fatten the fingers, the odds that they've set are a lot better, but it doesn't mean they won't still drop off. The tree can still abort them at this stage, but at least there's a good chance. And I'm also starting to try and put some grafts onto it, which I'm not convinced they'll be successful. There's one there and one here. I've got to label those. I think they were Prima off my other tree, but the grafts have been sitting in the fridge for a long time, so I thought I'd get them on. There's another one there I've done. I'm not too sure whether or not my grafting is going to be successful because the scions were looking a bit old, but we will wait and see what happens. And although I can't show them, there are a few possible fruits that have set higher up in the plant. I can't see them at the moment. They may have dropped off, But we'll see what happens anyway. We'll know later in the season if any have set, because it'll be a bit easy to see as they get bigger. But I didn't hand pollinate any of the ones up there. They were sort of out of reach without getting a ladder, so I'm not that optimistic of them setting, but we'll see what happens. But the tree itself is looking really good, really healthy. The only problem I might have here is it might get a bit out of hand size wise. So moving round to my little raised beds here that I've got, that you'll all be familiar with. I've got now we've got past the cold weather, they seem to be okay. I've got 3 Chilean guavas planted in here. 2 of them are Capao, that one there and that one there. And in actual fact, they haven't had fruits on them before, but this year, which you may or may not be able to see, got loads of flower buds coming on them, so I should get some fruits this year to taste if they're not nabbed by the birds. And the third one, which has also got a lot of flower buds on it, is a Villarica strawberry. Carefully wandering along the side of my summer house if I can without falling over. I featured in a video the other day, my maypop is waking up in grounds. It is trying to send up shoots. The only issues I have is the snails keep coming along and eating them, so I'm hoping if we get some hot weather that it's going to take off and that the shoots will grow faster than the snails can eat them, but we'll see what happens. Next to it is my in-ground strawberry guava or cherry guava that again has been obviously damaged by the cold, but is now shooting out and growing back nicely, I'm pleased to say. Whether or not I'll see any flowers on it this year remains to be seen. I still don't know if it's a yellow one or a red one, because there's no way to tell unless they fruit. And when it was just sold as, well, I think it was sold as a yellow guava, but so you would think it's a yellow cherry one, but there's no real way of being certain, because the supplier was very vague and only had the one. But it's still alive and it's come back again, so I'm pleased about that. Next to it is another pineapple guava that I've planted in ground. This one is Gemini. Thought I'd try a third one in ground. I planted it obviously in winter, so it's taken a while to start to put out new growth, but I can see new growth on it and flower buds as well, so I'm quite optimistic we're going to get fruits on this. Just for a bit of fun, I had a seedling avocado, a bacon that I stuck in grounds last year. Died back almost completely over winter, but it does seem to be signs of new shoots at the bottom, so perhaps that little rootstock will recover. Now behind it and against the wall I've got my Passiflora caerulea, blue passion flower, which I've put in grounds, hoping that if my maypop did survive the winter and flower, that I can cross-pollinate it with these, because these are compatible with Incarnata, which is the maypop. So we'll see what happens there. Moving around to the back of my Asian pear trees, which you know that I put in this corner. One's in ground and the others are in large pots. This one is my Nijisiki. Got one possible fruit on it which I've bagged to try and protect it from codling moth, and it's putting on new growth. The one that I put in ground is Korean Giant, which I think is also known as Olympic. Nice healthy plant, putting out lots of new growth. The one I've had the longest, this one is the Shinziki. This is actually doing quite well again. I've repotted it in a large fabric pot. It's got quite a lot of fruits on it, some of which I've put bags around in the hope that I can protect them from the codling moths. And I've left some of them unprotected because basically I didn't have time and didn't have enough bags to put around all of them, but I might come back and still bag those because they don't seem to have been affected by codling moths yet, so they might still be alright if I bag them, because it's a shame to lose any of the fruits. And going around the front, I've got my Hong Li, which is the one that I had to cut back heavily a year or so back because I thought it was dying from a virus. Seems to have recovered really well. putting out lots of nice side branches. And the final one is, I have to look at it because I can't remember, that's Kumoy. And interestingly, that's set one fruit which I've bagged as well, but I don't have much hope of that surviving to maturity. Quick look at my two jujubes. They've also been repotted in larger fabric sacks because I felt that they weren't a suitable soil and they were very restricted, so I've gone for a much sandier John Innes number 3 mix. Shooting out nicely now, but I don't yet see any signs of flowers, but I'm pretty sure they will flower. This one is the Lee, which means that this other one, which is also shooting out nicely, is Lang. And in fact, I can see embryo flower buds in there, so it will flower, although I don't expect to see any fruit set. Carry on the walk around, I've got my Szechuan pepper here. That could do with a repot, I might do that today. Depending how the day goes, and I can see embryo flower buds on it, but it looks a little bit yellowy, and I suspect, although it's got flower buds on it, I think it's a little bit root bound, so we might be tackling that today. And in front of it I've got a mulberry which is agate, which produces lovely big fruits, but I can see the snails have been on it rather annoyingly. It's a major problem this year, unfortunately. Same then, that's what's happened to basically my Pennsylvania golden here. You can see it's been savaged by snails, and unfortunately they ate any flowers that appear to have set on it. However, next to it I've got my Prima, and that, at the moment it's early days, but it does seem to have a few fruits that have set on it so far, but obviously they could get sunburnt or eaten by a snail, so we still don't know if I'm going to get any edible fruits this year, because the leaf canopy on this plant is very poor, which means it's not protecting the fruits, and they really do need the protection of leaf canopy. Now, I'm not going to go over all of my persimmons. They're actually very disappointing this year. This one, however, which is, I think, Costata, let me look at the label. This one's a Costata, which is an Asian persimmon. This does have quite a lot of flower buds on it, so I think there's a good chance of getting 2 or 3 fruits on it. Now, for whatever reason, some of my Asian persimmons, or some of my persimmons and hybrid ones, are flowering for the first time ever, because they haven't produced flower buds before, some of them, but most of them have got no flower buds on them at all this year. I have no idea why that should be, although it is of course a little bit disappointing. Don't know what the reason is for them not having flower buds on. I'm noticing some of them wilting, so as soon as we get a bit of sun it gets a bit too much for them. So I'm going to have to investigate the it might be that they needed a rest, it might be because they're pot bound or lacking in nutrients, but as long as I get a few flowers and a few fruits this year, at least I'll have something to video and possibly to eat. Quick look at my carob. Grew like crazy last year after dying back to a foot tall, well, less than a foot tall from the frost. It grew almost 6 feet last year, but it's now looking very it's looking a bit pasty, so I think this badly needs a repot. So that's another one on my to-do list today. I'm hoping to get that repotted later. Quick flick over all the figs. There's nothing interesting to report. They've all survived the winter. There's no brabers on any of my potted trees at all. They just don't flourish in pots, and unfortunately I haven't got anywhere to plant them in grounds. It's a possibility I might get a couple of main crop figs off them, but to be honest, I'm not at all optimistic the way things are going with these. It may even be that due to the space they take up and the fact that these pot grown ones don't produce any fruits for me, it may well be that I'll sell them off. I've got a good range of varieties, must have at least 15 varieties, but as they're not really taking to the pot growing and my garden's just too cramped, I might think just dispose of most of them, and then I can move the persimmons forward and get the persimmons into bigger pots and focus on those. Carrying on with my little walk around, another pineapple guava here. This one is, I can't remember the name, let me see if I can see the label. probably needs repotting. Okay, that's a Coolidge. That means the one behind it is probably Apollo. Lots of new growth coming out, so I am expecting to see some flower buds on them. Moving further along, got one of my loquats or loquats. It's doing very nicely. I've got a Mrs. Cookson and Oliver. Can't remember which one that is until I look at the label on the other one. But it's looking healthy, lots of new growth. It's in a big fabric pot, and I'm hoping that this autumn I'm going to see flowers on them. This pineapple guava is a Marion. Looks a bit sort of lacking in nutrients to me, so I don't really want to repot it. So I think I might have to feed it heavily. I've got a lotus rootstock here, persimmon lotus rootstock. It's got a few flower buds on it, but I'm actually going to cut this back, I think, and use it for grafting onto, because it's pointless having a lotus persimmon. In the ground there, I've got my only surviving variegated Chilean guava. That's Flambeau. That one survived hidden underneath a load of other shrubs. It survived the freeze we had in December 22 that killed my other in-ground one, because the variegated one's not as hardy. Despite spraying, unfortunately my nectarine has succumbed badly to peach leaf curl, but if I cut most of this growth off, the new leaves, once the temperatures get higher, don't tend to suffer from peach leaf curl. But I'm also looking likely to get rid of peach and nectarines, because it's just pointless here unless you can grow them in a polytunnel or a greenhouse. So this is my other loquat or loquat, looking very, very good. If we check the variety on this one, which is, let's have a look, see if I can get to this label. That's the Mrs. Cookson, so that means the other one is the Oliver, and these are grafted onto quince rootstocks, if I remember correctly. See a couple of suckers coming up there, which I'm going to remove off the roots, but still looking healthy. No more virus issues with them as far as I can see. Let's see if I can thread my way round the back. Have a quick look at what we want to have a look at here is my chocolate vine. You can see that there, that is Akebia quinata. That I believe is the white flowered one, so those fruits should be a lighter purple. Got plenty of those set. In fact, there's so many fruits set under here you can't really show them all, but they're getting, this is the chocolate flowered one here. Look at the size of those fruits for the 2nd of June. This is going to produce some very substantial fruits in here, and really it's hard to see, but there's absolutely dozens of fruits on it this year, and they get some all underneath it as well, so there's loads of those. Here's my beautiful flowering ornamental plant I've got here, which are Calycanthus, that's what they are. The flowers are hidden away behind everything else. It really merits a position. This one's called Aphrodite. It really would deserve to be in a large border where it make a great specimen, but unfortunately I just don't have anywhere for it, so in a pot it has to stay. Two more feijoas or pineapple guavas behind here. This one is the Unique, and the one next to it I think must therefore be, that must be Nikita. Yeah, I've repotted these into fresh pots this year because they were heavily pot bound, and they're putting out loads of new growth, and there are plenty of flower buds coming, so as long as I hand pollinate them, should get plenty of fruits on those. There's my Decaisnea. That's my blue finger or blue sausage tree. That seems to have survived this year. Got my black mulberry, Morris nigra. Quite exciting because it's actually got fruit set on it. So we're going to get to try a few black mulberries this year. Watch these little kiwi berries because they get a bit out of control. This one is definitely this is definitely SI, this one here, but I've got it growing on the north facing fence, which isn't ideal. Did have flower buds in it this year, but they've been swiped by the snails again. But of course, once it gets to the top of the fence and I move this mulberry away, it will get more light to it, and we should start to get, next year I believe I'll probably get flowers and fruits on it. Behind it's my apricot. That one is early Moor Park, flowered heavily. Thought I was going to get fruits, nothing set, and I put it in a bigger pot as well, so it shouldn't have a problem with the pots on it. But it's growing really well. One of my honeyberries I was selling, had 2 or 3 for sale, had no interest in them at all. £15 for a huge plant. You pay that for one in a 3-inch pot in the nursery, but obviously no one local to me shown any interest. But I think I've got 3 of those, but I didn't repot the other one, so it looks a bit sad. Some of my bare root persimmons here, which I'll feature in another video. They're starting to show some growth at last. If you saw the video, these are the 2 persimmons that I bought for myself as a birthday treat. This one's a vanilla, has got flower buds on it. I don't expect any to set. The one next to it was the Tipo, if I remember rightly. Yeah, this one's Tipo, had no flower buds on it at all, which is fine. I'm going to cut these back. I'm going to see if they set any fruit. If they don't, I'm going to cut them back about 2 feet to get them to bush out lower down. I've got my family apple tree behind it. 2 varieties, Bramley and Braben on it. This is growing nicely, so the roots have obviously taken. Even had a couple of flowers on. Don't expect them to set any fruit, and I wouldn't let it hold them anyway. I've got my little Chinese mulberry here, growing really nicely. That's benefited from a repot. This one is a nectarine red gold. I think it's red gold. Got that bare root from Thomas. That's also suffering from peach leaf curl, and I must admit I'm sick to death of peach leaf curl. 2 more bare root persimmons which came from Thomas. Nothing to report on those growth wise yet, but I will feature them closely in my persimmon video. And that's the other bare root one that came from Gardening Express. Another variety or duplicate variety of pineapple guava. I think this one's a Triumph. Got a few flower buds on it, but that'll need repotting at the end of this year. 2 more mulberries. This is my Illinois Everbearing. Should have repotted it a year ago. It's become extremely pot bound, which has really wrecked the growth on it. So that's got no fruits on it worth mentioning, just a couple of tiny little things. And the one behind it, which is my Moldovan Pink, has also suffered badly, and I left them far too long in the pots they were in, so I'm hoping that this year we'll get a bit of growth regeneration and not too much dieback. Just a quick browse along the side of the house. That's my Cornus Kousa. That really needs to go into the grounds, probably at my parents'. Oh look, it's actually got a flower on it. I didn't notice that. Terribly pot bound, so it's looking incredibly unhealthy. That's next to it is the remains of my Molar Delche pomegranate that I believe would have been originally cutting grown. It was a tree when I bought it, which died back, but it's now sprouted back from the base, so eventually we may get Molar Delche pomegranates. Here's my Luma apiculata, which I took out the ground to replace it with a pineapple guava, and managed to pot it out, get it out, potted up, cut it back heavily, and is now shooting out all over the place, I'm delighted to say. I'm very quickly going to do my last, as I'm doing a full garden tour, I shall have a quick walk round the front and show you the pineapple guavas that I've moved around the front. This one is my Mammoth, which I've repotted. I'm going to feed well. Got lots of new flowers on it. Pleased with how that's doing. And the other one next to it is my Triumph. So no flower buds on that yet, but it is just starting to show signs of growth. And this year I put some hanging baskets for the first time ever. Well, not for the first time ever, the first time for about 3 years. So I'm pleased with how they're looking at the front. So I could wander around the back, see if there's anything else to show you. I think there's only my in-ground fig tree to mention. Oh, this is a rootstock persimmon. Again, I think it's a lotus one. I'm going to try and graft onto that as well. So basically we've got, all I've got left to feature is my Japanese raisin tree, which is looking nice. That was repotted. And my in-ground fig tree, variety unknown, which had 30 or 40 Brabers on it, and I think I'm now down to 2. I don't know why Brabers have dropped this year. A lot of people have said the same problem. I don't know if it was excessive rain because we had a mild spring, but obviously something's caused them to dry up and fall off, which is frustrating because I thought I was going to have a fabulous year for Brabers, but obviously not to be the case. So anyway, as I said, some of the persimmons have got plenty of flowers on. I've got one here, a Chocolatino, that produces male and female flowers, and I've made the decision to remove all the male flowers this year because most of the persimmons I got last year had seeds in, and the fruits weren't particularly nice anyway, but I think the seeds rather ruins them and spoilt the texture. So I'm going to try and remove all the male flowers this year, which is the other reason I'm going to remove this large in-ground one, which I'm going to start cutting down today. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Hope it's been some interest to you and not dragged on too long. On the whole, most of the plants are looking healthy. They like all the rain, but they don't like the particularly cold weather we're having, so I'm hoping that we're not going to get too much more. But you can see the problem the rain's been causing me. My garden suffers from waterlogging and it just doesn't drain away, so I just end up with pools of stagnant water everywhere that get mosquitoes in and attract all the wrong sorts of insects, unfortunately. But there doesn't seem to be much I can do about it at the moment. Get lots of little mosquitoes and things in here, but it's just short of putting ground drains in. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. I hope there was bits of it that were of interest to you. Appreciate you watching. Obviously I'd love a thumbs up. You can share the video if anybody would like to have a look and see the sort of interesting mix of things I'm trying to grow here in the UK. Please subscribe to my channel and remember to click on that bell if you'd like to know when new videos come out. I will catch up with you all soon. Brett out for now.